everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of our monthly pitch event. In partnership with the ARM Institute, we're thrilled to be bringing you some of the most exciting emerging startups in the robotics for manufacturing and logistics space, all led by Pittsburgh-based founders. I'm Tara Lukabach, Director of Strategic Initiatives at OneValley, and I'll be your host today. None of this would be possible without our event partner, the ARM Institute. On behalf of the whole OneValley team, I'd like to thank them for making this event a reality. We'll be hearing more from them later on. Before we kick it off, I want to tell you a little bit about what we do here at OneValley. OneValley is a global entrepreneurship platform that supports entrepreneurs, accelerates startups, and empowers organizations across the globe that foster innovation communities. Over the past 6 years, OneValley has supported hundreds of startups that have raised over $1 billion. Our mission at OneValley is simple: democratize the resources of Silicon Valley and share them with the global community. We do so through a variety of initiatives, including events like these. Pre-COVID, we were running 80 events a year in person in our various innovation spaces. Today, not only are we running these events virtually, but the online accessibility of them has opened up these opportunities to the world at large. Now, I'd like to introduce you to Passport, our online innovation platform. As you see, we have over 40,000 members on the Passport platform who access and interact with not only each other, but also dozens of corporate partners, hundreds of investors and mentors, and nearly $1 million in discounted or free technology tools and services. Use the code Robotics25 for 25% off of your premium Passport membership. If you're not a member yet, I encourage you to check us out and take advantage of the discount by clicking the banner at the bottom of your screen. Just last week, we announced the launch of a Pittsburgh-only Passport ecosystem, the Pittsburgh Entrepreneurship Platform. PEP is an exclusive online community for Pittsburgh-based startups to help them navigate both local and global startup resources. Eligible Pittsburgh-based companies will have access to a growing roster of Pittsburgh mentors, investors, resources, events, and founders. They'll also be able to access a bridge into the global Passport community and all of the perks that come along with it. In addition to a cash prize, each of our winners today will be receiving a free annual membership to the Pittsburgh Entrepreneurship Platform, powered by Passport and developed in partnership with Ascender and the Richard King Mellon Foundation. Winners will also receive a fast pass to the semifinals of the upcoming Pittsburgh Startup Challenge, but more on that later. Head over to the Pittsburgh Entrepreneurship Platform to take advantage of our launch rate of $99. Starting June 24th, prices will go up. So follow the banner at the bottom of the screen for your chance to take advantage of this early offer. I'd again like to thank our partner for this evening, the Advanced Robotics for Manufacturing Institute, who not only made this event possible, but who is shaping up to be a pretty exceptional next-door neighbor. For those of you that don't know, OneValley is opening a new innovation center this summer in Hazelwood Green, right down the street from the ARM Institute in Pittsburgh. We're excited to continue working together to bring you programming like today's. Now let's kick it off with our fireside chat. I'd like to welcome OneValley CEO Nikhil Sinha and Arnie Kravitz, Chief Technology Officer at the ARM Institute, who will be discussing his experience in the robotics community, as well as what excites him about the Hazelwood Green and the Pittsburgh area as a whole. Nikhil, take it away.
Thanks, Tara, and welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for this event. We're delighted to have with us today Arnie Kravitz. As Sarah pointed out, he's the Chief Technology Officer of the Advanced Robotics for Manufacturing Institute, or ARM. Arnie drives ARM's technical vision to help the organization fulfill its mission of increasing US global competitiveness by accelerating innovative technologies that make robots more accessible to US manufacturers. Arnie has spent over 37 years designing, developing, and manufacturing a large portfolio of products that include aquatic robots, autonomous vehicles, robotic, augmented, and virtual reality vision systems, self-learning inference engine-based systems, commercial consumer electronics, and cryptographic devices. Can't think of anyone better to join us for this event today than Arnie. Ani has taught as an adjunct professor at the Johns Hopkins University and has significant experience exploiting emerging tools and technologies to rapidly transform new ideas into manufactured products. Ani, welcome to the OneValley pitch event on the future of robotics for manufacturing and logistics. And let me begin by asking you more about the ARM Institute and its mandate and mission.
Well, Nicole, thank you for having me, and I look forward to your question.
Terrific. Can you tell us more about the ARM Institute and it's what its mandate is, what its mission is, and how it supports manufacturing in the U.S.?
Yeah, so the ARM Institute is one of the America Makes institutes. It was set up under the Barack Obama administration, and we are actually sponsored by the Office of Secretary of Defense. Our mission is to invigorate the U.S. industrial base through developing technology that will lead to the adoption of robotic technology that will make a marked difference in American manufacturing, the areas of making manufacturing more efficient, making manufacturing more proficient, making manufacturing safer, and propel the United States really into the future where we really do make, we can step up to the challenge for the nation, but we really do make the most enviable products in the world. And we do it by using robots as tools.
That's great. Let me talk about Pittsburgh. Of course, the institute located in Pittsburgh, but Pittsburgh is also, often been called Robotics Row or Roboburg. But the city is consistently ranked as one of the best places to found and grow a robotics company. In your experience, what are the unique factors that exist in Pittsburgh to make all of that possible?
I think one of the great things about Pittsburgh is Pittsburgh has a concentration of companies that's par excellence. Within a 3-mile walk of our facility in Hazelwood Green, there are over 75 robotics companies and artificial intelligence companies, as well as major universities, including Carnegie Mellon University, University of Pittsburgh, and other great universities as well. So I would say what makes this great is the concentration of people, and that the people are at that early phase in their career where they're just bursting with ideas. And we have all the pieces in place to help them form businesses and to get moving into the areas of robotics and artificial intelligence. I have a background, though, so I'm going to quickly, as you're asking me the question, move to a quieter area.
Sure. I think many of the things that you've described in terms of this concentration of people, of great educational institutions that are developing human resources that are skilled in particular techniques, and then an ecosystem there to support them. That's very much, similar to the reasons why we see the concentration of digital technologies and companies in Silicon Valley. And so it's great to see that kind of capability being developed in the Pittsburgh market as well. Sort of as you think about Pittsburgh and all of the resources, what is lacking right now within the Pittsburgh environment and community, and what more is needed to be able to support startups in particular within the Pittsburgh environment?
So in terms of what's lacking, we have the people, we have the talent. I wish we had more incubator facilities in the area, and I wish we had more availability of capital to help people get the funds they need to get going. That would probably be the big thing that really is blocking things. The other is sometimes I feel there's not enough awareness of the funding that actually is in this area, such as the ARM Institute, such as the Mellon Foundation, such as so many other things. So I would say, just to answer that really briefly, it would be additional funding sources and additional facilities for incubators and startups would probably be the biggest things that could make a difference, and the knowledge of their existence.
Yeah, and that is exactly the gap that we at OneValley hope to fill in the Pittsburgh community by bringing our Passport platform to the community by opening our new innovation center in Hazelwood Green and bringing all of our resources, including our network of investors, into the Pittsburgh area to be able to support the startups. And so we're excited to come to the community and to fill that gap in terms of incubation and the availability of capital in the area. For companies that are thinking of locating in the Pittsburgh area or already have startups in this area in Pittsburgh, what's the best way that they might think about working with the ARM Institute, and what kind of resources and support and networking capabilities can they develop if they partner with ARM?
So ARM is a tremendous opportunity. So first of all, I would say join ARM. ARM is a consortium with over 300 members, from small companies to very large companies. We span industries as broad as textile to aerospace, to food processing. It's amazing the depth and the breadth of what we do. So I'd say step one is join ARM. The membership dues are very low. A lot of it's work share, so attend a few meetings and you'll pay for it. Win a contract and you'll come ahead. So one is join ARM and become active in ARM, which means when we have a call for proposal, put a team together and respond. If you can't put a team together for yourself, just call me or call any of us on staff and tell us what you're looking to do. Discuss the idea. We'll see how it aligns with our roadmap, our strategy. We'll give you advice. We'll help you build a team. So when that proposal or that call for proposal comes up, you'll be ready. The most important thing we really provide is the ecosystem. And you build the ecosystem through relationships, and relationships are created by, even if you don't win, it's just working on the proposal together that gets you the relationship with a Boeing, an Airbus, a Siemens, or an integrator like a Premier Automation, or just other small companies that you didn't know were in the area. All of that is what you need to go after the other things, as well as, as I pointed out, we are a DoD institute. So again, it's the exposure to program managers at the DoD with budget that can help advise you or could see what you're doing. Just recently, we had a call for proposal for a fellow. One of the projects that came in didn't win, but it was a really good proposal. We forwarded it to another group in the government, and the government's getting involved with that person. I don't know where it'll go, but just the exposure is a big deal. So in terms of how do you get involved, the best way is to join www.arminstitute.org. It's not very expensive. And just, to point out, we have a call for proposal that's going to come out in about a week or two. So now is the time to join.
Great, thanks. And as a reminder to the audience, if you have questions for Ani or for me, just write it in the chat function, and I'll read out your answers. Read out your questions. We do have a question from the audience, Ani, and what are the major industries that ARM is focusing on for expanding the use of robotics?
So we focus on multiple areas. So let's just talk about, we have 5 focus areas. One is developing tools that allow you to assess what's the cost benefit analysis of doing this robotic rollout in my factory. It will allow you to assess, there are 5 ways to do this, to use a robot to do this manufacturing process. What's the best way? We call that reducing the risk for transition to the factory floor. And then we have 4 other technical strategies or focus areas that we're really investing in. One is the human, we call it the human element, but it's all things related to the human-robot interaction, making them easier to use, easier to program, giving them the perception to watch you work with it so it can work with you more efficiently, to understand its surroundings. The other is we call interoperability, make them interoperable. And all those technologies there are the robot-to-robot interactions. How do I coordinate 2 arms together? How do I coordinate an arm working with an autonomous mobile robot or working with a conveyor belt? Next to that is we call make them agile, flexible, and reconfigurable. the advantage of a robot over traditional automation is really a one-use layout, where robotics can be used over and over again in different applications. But let's make these robots be able to be put into a work cell, have them survey their work cell, and have them start to figure out how they can work in that work cell very quickly and self-calibrate to save time, reduce costs, and allow lower skilled people to work them. And lastly, I mean, just a significant number of these companies in Pittsburgh is the artificial intelligence aspect. I look at artificial intelligence to say, how do I use artificial intelligence to enhance the performance of a robot used in manufacturing? And manufacturing does include moving equipment around the factory, moving equipment into the stores, into the warehouses, loading and unloading trucks, pick, place, kit, stack, unstack, and all the logistics functions that some people don't consider to be part of manufacturing, but are absolutely part of the manufacturing supply chain.
Talk a little bit more about that application of AI and autonomy to robotics in manufacturing. The main focus in the last few years around AI has been around autonomy and autonomous vehicles, but you seem to suggest that there is a greater role for AI and robotics to play within the manufacturing sector. Talk to us a little bit more about that.
So yeah, absolutely. So thank you for asking. A lot of robots, in order to run more quickly, they'll solve every path plan there is. So they'll know how to move their arm from A to B, but there can be an ambiguous solution as to how you do it. So even though the artificial intelligence, even though the path planning does not need artificial intelligence can enhance the path planning. That's just one easier one. So I have a repeatable path all the time, rather than going to a lookup table and pulling the path. The artificial intelligence will choose the best path, and it can learn from how it's doing it to always choose the best path. That's just in one thing in motion. In terms of what is it looking at, that's the perception side of artificial intelligence. So in terms of developing classifiers, find the Coke bottle in the scene. That's easy. Now find where to pick up the Coke bottle. And by the way, it's not completely full. So where is the center? How can I pick something up where I don't know the center of mass and not drop it? I don't even know what it weighs sometimes. How do I figure out how to pick three-dimensional randomly shaped objects and pack them into a box in the most efficient way for the box? And by the way, let's put the center of mass in the center of the box, so when I stack them, they don't fall over. So those are some of the ways that artificial intelligence works. In terms of the cobot, where I'm building a robot that's going to work with me to move a heavy piece of carbon fiber. So I'm moving it from here to here, and it's heavy. So instead of having 4 people do it, it's going to have myself and the robot. The robot's got the other end. It's like moving a bed sheet. It knows that it has to move with me. If it moves too fast or it does it jerkingly, it can wrench my back. So from a safety perspective, the robot has to see me and have perception of me, and then have some sort of understanding of what could injure me and prevent it. So you have both a safety feature, and you have I'll call it the ability to understand how to move and how to navigate in that. So it's very complex. There's a lot of ambiguity in anything where you have a pliable material where there's uncertainty. It just screams artificial intelligence for an easier solution. And we found that when people use artificial intelligence, it is in modules. It is for easier solutions. A lot of it's drop downs where they're pulling artificial intelligence modules down to do things either from ROS or from NVIDIA or from some other online area where they're pulling these modules together and building them. So it's a very exciting time for using artificial intelligence in robotics.
All right, we have another question from the audience. Tell us how you think the robotics industry can help in managing future pandemics, and whether it's through developing medical equipment or dispersing supplies, etc.
So we actually funded 10 projects, actually 11, in direct response for COVID-19 relief. And that was in using robotic manufacturing to restore the supply chain that was no longer in the United States, in making PPE, which is personal protection equipment. In our case, we have a very large community in the textile world. So for us, it was very easy to bring textile manufacturers and fund them for projects to make masks, gowns, and booties. We have a team of a small company called Interface Solutions that teamed with Rensselaer Polytechnic University, a small one-guy shop out of North Carolina that had been in the textile world, and Hickey Freeman, which manufactures some of the finest suits. So for all the smalls, just to get introduced to Hickey Freeman was a big deal. They're leveraging technology from RPI, and they put together a robot that makes PPE. We have another one, which was Henderson Sewing Machine Company, Siemens, and several other smalls that put together a lights out manufacturing line that makes PPE, packages it, and palletizes it. And so those were some of the things we brought to bear. The other areas that we brought to bear was in autonomous mobile robots, several of them that can roam around a factory and disinfect it. One of them was teamed with FedEx, and it's doing the demonstration at FedEx to actually sanitize a facility while people are working there, so not disrupt it. That's going to get tested over at Warner Robins, and that could be a product that goes. And lastly, we had one that was funded by NIST, and that project was to build a robot that could perform qPCR testing at high rates of speed, so it would automate it. Got the cost way down, could do it in about, if there was a part where it had to be in an oven for like an hour, but aside from that, it took like 5-10 minutes to do the test. So for while you wait testing, this was a great process. It did, I forget how many at a pop. They needed 4 months to get going. They got it going in 4 months. I think it was 2 months later, they were in revenue service with the first one, and now they're cranking out more and putting them in revenue service. It's a great success story. So those are great areas, is that PPE. Actually, I didn't mention one, erecting mobile hospitals and disinfecting buildings are great applications for robots.
Great, wow. Didn't realize that you'd already played such an important role in trying to deal with issues around the pandemic. One last question. As you know, we're going to be neighbors at Hazelville Green before too long. We expect to open our center sometime during the summer. What excites you about what's going on in Hazelville Green and in that development, and more generally about what's going on in terms of revitalization of industry and services in Pittsburgh?
Yes, so Hazelwood Green is very exciting. So, unfortunately, you guys didn't get to see it in 2017 and 2018, when it really was an impoverished neighborhood in the city that businesses had simply abandoned. And yet there were people who were living there. There were businesses that were struggling to survive. And we came in and with help from the city and the state and Redevelopment Act, we were one of the first tenants in Mill 19. Of course, Carnegie Mellon University, we won also in the DOD, we won the proposal. And you're seeing more and more companies going in there. If you just drive down the street there, it used to look like a rundown, dangerous neighborhood. And now it just looks like a neighborhood that's really coming back and coming back fast. And it's an exciting place to be. It's a great location in Pittsburgh. You're right on the river. You can cross the bridge over to another side of the city. There's little restaurants over there. There's bike trails. You can ride downtown. Pittsburgh is a city on the hill. It's a lot like San Francisco. Actually, the hills are steeper, but it's a lot like San Francisco, that it's very hilly. Just imagine San Francisco, no palm trees, snow in winter, and deciduous trees, but you have the steep hills and the inclines. I just think it's a very exciting place to be, because it's a place where you're making a difference for the people who live there.
Thanks a lot, Ani. We're looking forward to being part of the community and to partner with you and with other organizations in the city to continue to make progress in that development. Thanks so much for joining us today. Thank you for partnering with us on this pitch event. We're very excited to listen to the companies that are going to be pitching today, and we look forward to continuing our conversation and our partnership in the future.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I have to apologize for that little disruption at the beginning, but I guess with any startup, it seems to always fall apart right when you get the plan set. but the key is to recover. So
yeah, we recovered very well.
thank you.
Thanks a lot, Ani, and back to you, Tara.
Thank you, Nikhil, and thank you, Arnie, for that insightful dialogue. Arnie, thank you so much for joining us tonight and for all of the work you've done and continue to do for the Pittsburgh robotics ecosystem. We're really looking forward to being neighbors and to continuing to work on some exciting programming together. So thank you both again. So now it is time to get started with the pitching portion of today. I would like to start by introducing our judges. Our judges for this evening are, of course, Arnie Kravitz, Chief Technology Officer at the ARM Institute. We have Lisa Michaud-Smith. She is a Principal Software Engineer at RE2 Robotics. We have Nadili Nunez. She is the Executive Director of Ascender. And we have Juan Scarlett, our very own Managing Director of OneValley Ventures. So I want to thank you all for being here and give you a quick moment to introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about why you're excited about the Pittsburgh robotics ecosystem. So Arnie, perhaps since we just heard from you, maybe for those that are just joining, could you give us a very brief bio and just tell us a little bit about why you're excited about the Pittsburgh robotics ecosystem?
So I'm Arnie Kravitz. I'm the Chief Technical Officer for the Advanced Robotics for Manufacturing Institute. We're a public-private partnership, and we are a DoD institute that's charged with invigorating the U.S. industrial base through the adoption of robotic technology that gets enhanced with artificial intelligence. I have a very long background in numerous industries, starting way back in the around 1982, 83 timeframe. And I've been working in high tech, starting off as a design engineer. I've been the president of companies, the vice presidents of companies in different roles. And I just love the technology. And it's very, very exciting to be involved really in the artificial intelligence community and in the robotics community with what's going on right now and the opportunities that are there to really change the way the world manufactures and improves the quality of, I'll call it the quality of life at work for the folk who work in factories.
Thanks, Arnie. Lisa, how about we hear from you next? Could you just give us a brief background and share a little bit about what excites you about Pittsburgh and their robotics ecosystem?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I'm lucky enough. I grew up in the Pittsburgh area, so I got to, stay and raise my own family in a world leader in robotics. So I've always been very excited about that. I went to Penn State, have my degree in computer engineering, and I work for RE2, also known as RE2 Robotics. We're a medium-sized robotics company in Lawrenceville. So we're on the other river from where Hazelwood Green is. And we primarily focus on mobile manipulation, so manipulator arms, robotic arms. I've been with the company for about 15 years now. And I mean, it's just been great getting to work with so many robotics companies in the Pittsburgh area. So even just, I've been working for RE2 that whole time, but have gotten to work with, just individual joint manufacturers, other robotics companies that are doing full integrated systems, companies that are doing sensor development, as well as, Pittsburgh has the traditional manufacturing base of castings companies, machining companies, and that has just made it so much easier for RE2 to grow because we can grow along with all of these other companies right beside us.
Awesome. Hopefully we'll be able to get you from Lawrenceville over to Hazelwood Green for a few events in the near future. Thanks for sharing.
I hang out with Catalyst Connection in the same building. So
awesome.
I'm there.
Great. Well, we'll see you there. Nadili, how about we hear from you next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Nadili. I'm the Executive Director of Ascender. We are an entrepreneur community that helps startups start and grow their businesses through our education, through peer-to-peer support. We have a large network in terms of, and we work with all kinds of entrepreneurs, not just manufacturing. I'll say in terms of the excitement I have towards this industry, in 2020, I think more than half of the tech investment went to this sector. And so it's to say there is not that there's something growing, people are noticing what's already great here. I've been on the board for South by Southwest Pitch and a Canadian international pitch competition, which part of the innovations I've seen have been manufacturing worldwide. And I still say that Pittsburgh's got something real special. So I love it here. I'm originally from New York, and Carnegie Mellon brought me here, which is another hub of innovation too. So I'm very glad to be here, and thank you for having me.
Thanks, Nadili. Awesome. So Juan, how about last but not least, could you share your background and why you're excited about Pittsburgh?
Sure. Thanks, Tara. Juan Scarlett. I lead OneValley Ventures, where we work with partners to develop and execute venture investment strategies across the OneValley ecosystem. Our first major effort is the OneValley Ventures Fund, a seed stage fund focused on investing in standout digital transformation companies with dynamic founders taking on high value problems in attractive markets. I've been in the venture capital industry for the past 14 plus years. And broadly working in technology investing and research for the past 20. Prior to joining OneValley, I led an early stage fund called Enabled Ventures and a growth stage investing effort at Passport Capital. Some of my past robotics and automation investments include Oris Robotics, which was acquired by J&J, May Mobility, and Sense Photonics. I'm personally just excited to begin to interact with the very vibrant Pittsburgh startup ecosystem and meet so many of the wonderful founders and robotics experts in the area, and generally just really just enjoy working with energetic founders to help create incredible products using next generation technologies. So I'm excited to be here and definitely looking forward to hearing the pitches.
Thanks, Juan. And thank you again to all of our judges. Just hearing you all speak so highly of the Pittsburgh robotics ecosystem is making me even more excited to be a part of it. So today, these judges will have the difficult task of judging our 7 amazing founders on their upcoming pitches, but there can only be one winner. Our pitching founders will be Mark, CEO of Brownfield Robotics, Howland, co-founder, and Joshua, director of hardware of Mach 9 Robotics, Jesse, CEO of Gridfruit, Dipan, CEO of Voyage, Allison, CEO of Codex Labs, Prakash, CEO of EXGware, and Stuart, CEO of eStat Actuation. A quick reminder about what's at stake tonight. Our grand prize winner will be walking away with $2,000 in cash. The audience choice will win $500 in cash. As mentioned, each of our winners will also be given a free annual membership to the Pittsburgh Entrepreneurship Platform and a guaranteed spot in the semifinals for the upcoming Pittsburgh Startup Challenge. Let's quickly go over all the ways that you, the audience, can take part in the action today. First, ask questions to our pitching startups in the chat. If we have time, we just may get to them. Next, rate each startup after your pitch. Your votes determine the Audience Choice Award, and by rating, you will be entered in a raffle for the chance to win 1 free year of Passport for yourself. Finally, if you'd like to connect with any of our pitching startups, ask for an intro through the Meet the Startups tab at the top of the page. So with that, let's get to our pitches. First, I'd like to welcome Mark, CEO of Brownfield Robotics, to the virtual stage.
Mark DeSantis, CEO of Brownfield Robotics. Thanks again for having me. We take pictures of plants, as I said, and we use those pictures to determine the health and performance of those plants. An important thing right now, because we're over the next 30 years going to increase world population by 40%. That's 3 billion people. We're going to have to grow more food in those 30 years than we have since the invention of agriculture 10,000 years ago. We're going to have to do that actually by getting more with less. There'll be less arable land than is available today and fewer tools than are commonly used today. It happens to be our opinion the way to do that is to monitor the condition of every plant from seed to harvest. And that's why we say every plant matters. Precision agriculture is a concept that was around 30 years ago. It's the idea that you can manage crops in a very specific way. Right now, the lowest level of resolution to manage crops is the acre. But if you can image every single plant and geolocate that plant and tell you everything about that plant through its life, you can manage down to the grape and the apple and the peach. And that's what we do. One example, AA Vineyard is one of our customers in New York State. A typical inspection regime on a vineyard includes a viticulturalist who will walk among the vines, and they can typically inspect about 150 vines. That's about 1/10 of an acre. Using our technology, our camera, seated really on anything that moves. It could be we've used ATVs, tractors, a variety of things. Pass it in front of the plant, uses a typical RGB imaging, but a stereo lens with its own light source, and then assesses every single vine, every single grape, and geolocates everything it sees. That data, some of which is processed on the device, the bulk of which goes up to the cloud, and then a readout for the grower that tells that grower the precise condition of every vine, every grape, every leaf on every plant in the entire vineyard on a continuous basis. We've got right now, this is a little dated, we actually have 14 vineyards in 4 states and now 5 countries. So we're actually doing vineyards in Washington State, Oregon, New York, and a cluster in California, 1 in Canada, 3 in France, and 1 in Italy. We're crop agnostic. Actually, we're doing blueberries in Peru and a cacao trees in Colombia. It's a team that came out of Carnegie Mellon, not surprisingly, developed technology over about a 10-year period. The 2 founders, I'm the CEO and joined about a year and a half ago, Tim and George, who were at the Robotics Institute, had built various types of robots to work in various types of agricultural settings. And they realized one thing, which is farmers are not ready to buy robots just yet, although they will one day. But they decided to take the perception part of the robotic technology, the imaging and assessment, and make that a service. So we sell our service sort of a cell phone model where the user doesn't buy any robotic technology per se. They're buying the ability to have their crops assessed on a continuous basis. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Mark, for your wonderful presentation. Let's head over to the judges for questions. Lisa, maybe you could kick us off.
So I guess the first question I had is, you say that you are selling your service. So how often does that service need to happen? And how much of a hassle is it for you to provide that service every time? So is it, you have to ship the equipment there, or you store the equipment in a warehouse nearby? How does that work?
Nope. Yeah, we don't provide any of this service. We just give them a camera. It takes 20 minutes to set up. They can attach it to anything that moves, and they're good to go. So we rarely actually see our customers. So they turn it on and just drive. The service for crop inspection, typically in a vineyard or in any kind of specialty crop, which is where our focus is, we originally thought was probably 6 or 8 times a year. It turns out that's not quite the case. Some of our growers are inspecting their crops on a weekly basis, and depending on the season, it's on a daily basis. So they're using this tool much more intensively than we imagined they ever would.
Thanks, Mark. Thank you, Lisa, for the question. Juan or Nadili, do either of you have any questions?
Sure. So, your problem statement was related to, we're going to need to grow more food with less land, but what you currently are able to diagnose are things like blueberries. But I think the most planted crop, isn't it, wheat or corn? So does your product able to make that same analysis for those kinds of crops?
Sure. We've done sorghum. We got a $600,000 grant from the Department of Energy, the ARPA-E program, to assess about 10 acres of sorghum in South Carolina. It works in any crop. We chose specialty crops because the margins, the volumes of, let's just say, the revenue associated with an acre of corn is about $600. The revenue associated with grapes is anywhere from $8,000 to $15,000, and cannabis can be in the millions. So we focused first and foremost where the money is, and that's in specialty crops, which is about a $2 trillion market. It's probably, agriculture is the largest industry in the world. So we went where the money is, but no, we can address any crop.
Juan, I see you unmuted. Would you like to ask a question as well?
Yeah, real quick. Thanks, Mark. I guess I'd love to understand if you guys have a sense yet or thus far for how much you're improving the performance of the crops that you're monitoring.
Sure, we do 3 things. One, good question. Numbers. One is we function like a doctor. So we're diagnosing problems, mold, infestation, disease early. These are monocultures. So a disease shows up on one plant, it can wipe out an entire crop, something the Southeast is suffering from right now. We see those things as they happen. So we're inspecting every crop and alert the grower to where it is and what it is with the image location. We also function like a coach. So we are looking at the crop at different states throughout the life of the crop and measuring it against what the expectations are of the grower. And then the grower can go in and address it with additional water, de-leafing, or any other things that they do through the life of the plant. And then the last thing we do in value is yield prediction. This is the holy grail of every farmer. You want to know how much you're going to produce because you're selling it forward. Because we're imaging not 1 or 2% of the crop, we're imaging in some cases the entire grow, we're able to generate a yield prediction far sooner with a higher level of accuracy and precision. And in one case, we were able to increase yield in one of our vineyards up to 5%, which is a big deal. And we're only in our second year.
Thanks, Mark. Arnie, would you like to close us out with one final question?
Yeah, just in terms of just on the economics of it all. So I think I understand what you're trying to do, which I think is really great. In terms of just the current way of doing it, if we're doing it manually, say on an organic farm where you have someone walking the fields, or teams of people walking, to make it equivalent, so you're doing 100% inspection. You know, what's your cost differential in doing that between having the people walking the field and by the way, and then they can turn the fruit, so they're going to see both sides of the fruit as well, versus the other approach like Hemva out of Spain has, where the UAV flies on top of the crops and looks down, and again is looking for, just like you say, the health of it. What's your cost advantage in those two scenarios?
Sure, it's substantial in both. It's not really a labor. We originally sold it as a labor savings value, but let me talk about drones. Drones can't see what we can see, and at least of the 14 vineyards we're in, 5 or 6 already use drones, and they acknowledge that. So we're not competing with drones. You cannot see what we see boots on the ground. We're perpendicular to the plant and can see directly into all the things we need to see that's not visible to drones. And that's just acknowledged. But you asked about how much labor savings we are on bodies. You're using one ATV and just driving up and down the rows, and you don't have to send as many people. But actually, we learned a little dirty secret about crop inspection. It doesn't work. Using humans doesn't work. So 2 of the vineyards we are in, one of which is Chateau Palmer, which makes the famous Chateau Margaux, one of the premier vineyards in France, used people. And I remember I was talking to the vineyard manager and I said, well, how does this compare to humans? It doesn't. The people we use, even if they're trained and highly motivated, the problem is when you use multiple people to inspect the same thing, you get different opinions. He used the example of a radiologist. If you give the same x-ray to 5 radiologists, you get 4 opinions. And the opinions are different enough to invalidate the data. So they like it because of the objective nature of it. You're digitalizing what you're seeing. So you actually have a digital record of the time and date stamped of the thing you saw, which you can keep forever and compare it over time because we're imaging the same plant repeatedly through its life. And we're doing it on a massive scale. It's just a very different scenario than using humans. So there is a labor savings component, and we went into this thinking that was it. But that's number 5 on the value according to our customers.
Thank you, Mark, for that great presentation and those insightful responses. And thank you to all of our judges. Next up, we have Mach 9 Robotics. Please join me in welcoming its co-founder, Howen, to our virtual stage.
I'm a co-founder at Mach 9 Robotics, and we help you look at what's on the ground now. Utilities keep cities running. What's surprising is that in most cases, the condition and even position of utilities are completely unknown to us. This lack of information has cost people their lives and led to billions of dollars in financial losses. The solution to the problem is subsurface mapping, which is currently slow, inaccurate, expensive, dangerous, and plainly hard. Our solution is integrating hardware with an intelligent mapping software, which makes subsurface mapping faster, cheaper, and more accurate. We increase the efficiency by streamlining subsurface utility inspection in 3 key ways. First, we help you create survey-grade models of surface and subsurface assets that even non-experts can understand. Second, we give everyone the power of an expert geophysicist when interpreting the data using our proprietary AI mapping software. Finally, we provide seamless software integration so that tedious manual data entry and analysis become a thing of the past, making the subsurface utility mapping workflow quicker and more streamlined. Mach 9 actually evolved out of a research project out of CMU to position robots in challenging GPS denied environments using subsurface information. This is relevant for navigation in the mining industry, where visual sensors typically fail under harsh environmental conditions. And we show these research results to our customers and learn that what they want is to be able to automatically position underground utilities from GPR data directly. We've built a platform for surveyors to map utilities even in GPS-denied environments using the localization algorithm that we developed in-house. And we collected a small data set shown right here with our experimental mapping unit on the Carnegie Mellon's campus from the Cut to the Gates-Hillman Center. And we demonstrated our ability to locate the global positions of underground utility pipes that keep CME running every day, as shown in the orange dots in the bottom right figure. This is just one step further to a future where we can analyze subsurface information at scale completely automatically. So according to our interaction with our customers, we have identified two complementary solutions to the subsurface mapping problem. The first solution we call M1 is an integrated software solution for utility locators, which we are beginning to pilot as soon as this summer. In M1, we plan to provide automated data processing and interpretation in real time, and we presented the conclusions to technicians via a very intuitive visual interface to help them get the job done fast and correctly. The second solution we're providing is M2, and we're prototyping that this summer, which is an artificial intelligence-powered mobile mapping platform capable of mapping large-scale 3D surface and subsurface models of entire cities at a large scale. We've already found several large civil engineering and firms and energy companies looking to use M2 for large construction and inspection projects. Our customers know the value of our products, and we know their needs. We're disrupting the technically stagnant subsurface mapping equipment market from the ground up. Our current customers are civil engineers and utility locating firms who are deeply familiar with the equipment that we're providing. And in the future, we plan to aim at a bigger market. We plan to provide the information directly to companies ranging from agriculture to mining to disrupt the over $90 billion subsurface inspection information market. Our competition builds great hardware and software, but no one is addressing how to combine surface and subsurface information to inspect utilities at scale. In fact, several OEMs have actually reached out to us to build them better software. When speaking with practitioners, we found that it takes usually over 5 days to analyze 1 day worth of survey data using existing software. And 80% of the land surveyors using the software are actually dissatisfied with the software they're using. And some of them would even go as far as changing their entire fleet of radar systems just to get marginally better software performance. We are moving Mach 9 fast. We are in negotiations with the nation's largest utility locating company. We are acquiring tons of relevant data. We're creating partnerships with OEMs to get access to very expensive equipment to construct our mobile mapping proof of concept. And we are expecting $3 million sales in mobile mapping systems from the already interested clients in the US, Australia, and the UK. We are the right team to tackle the subsurface infrastructure inspection problem. And one of the goals of Mach 9 is to bring together best technologists, thinkers, hackers, and hustlers from Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh. I'm joined by my co-founder, Josh Spizak, and we both work for Professor Howie Chosen under his biorobotics lab, solving the most challenging perception problems. And to make sure we are on the right track, we are also advised by the best, including Dave Maloney and Don Rucker, who are seasoned business builders. We're also advised by Michael Tuwick, who has deeper understanding of the subsurface utility mapping problem and market, Dr. Dimi Apostolopoulos, and Professor Michael Case, who are one of the best robotics practitioners in the world. We thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions, comments, ideas, or referrals, please reach out to us at info@mach9.co and help us prevent tomorrow's big infrastructure failure today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Howard. I'd like to also welcome Joshua from the Mach 9 team, who will be joining for the Q&A portion. So with that, let's head over to the judges for questions. Nadili, can we kick it off with you?
Sure. Can you tell me a little bit about the pricing?
Yeah. So for our M1, we are planning to sell $9,000 as a base installation fee per unit, and $500 per month for the premium software features that you can subscribe to. And for M1, we are planning to provide the visual friendly user interface for the utility locators to be able to locate utilities fast and conveniently.
Thank you, Helen.
It's going to be more expensive with a more sophisticated system being able to map larger scale utilities for entire cities.
Thank you, Helen. Arnie or Juan, do either of you have any questions?
What kind of error rates are you expecting as you're working with the device? You know, basically, I would say an error, probably the more serious one would be that you missed a wire versus
Yeah, that's a very good question. So for the error rate, I think so there are two metrics that we are looking at right now. first is the false positives and false negatives, which are the ones that you're talking about. Maybe we sometimes miss a wire, maybe we falsely detect something that's not a cable or a pipe. The second category of metric that we're looking at is all the classification error, which we are trying. So we are trying to autonomously classify the pipes that we are seeing to split them into different categories. So for example, this is a sewage pipe. This is an electric pipe. This is a water pipe. And for both of these metrics, we are still doing experimentation to determine what's the best value for that is, and also for the what we plan to do is to do as well as the best geophysics there is, and to help them prevent making simple mistakes such as missing pipes that are not very obvious to a human eye, but for an algorithm, from an algorithm perspective, it should be plenty visible.
So just two quick questions. Are you able to detect leakage current on electrical wiring, or as well as leaking pipes, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, using the GPR, we are able to detect the water leaks because how GPR essentially works is detecting the density changes in the material. And if you have water leak somewhere, the density of that part of the wet dirt would be different than the other areas. So we will be able to detect leaks, but not for electricity damages, but we will be able to see the obvious surface damages of pipes and all sorts of cables. So yeah, we will be able to detect water leaks, but for a lot of inspection purposes, we'll be able to detect these problems.
Yeah, and just including like ground faults, the hazardous conditions where you could have an electric current pop up when someone steps on something. If not, it's okay. I just was curious.
Yeah, I don't think we'll be able to detect electric faults, but that's something worth looking into.
Thanks.
And one other thing I would like to mention on the point of error metrics, like Howard said, we are still developing those metrics and where we're at now. But one of the beautiful things about our system is we are using machine learning and artificial intelligence to improve ourselves. So the first thing is, as they use the system, they're able to check it. So if we do miss something, it's no longer them trying to check all the boxes and find it all themselves. It's them making sure, yes, this looks correct. There's also one here. It transforms the problem and makes it a lot easier. And then from their input, we're also able to learn and adapt the system to do a better job next time. So we'll only just keep improving as we get more and more usage.
Thank you, Howard and Joshua. I think we may have time for one more question. So Lisa or Juan, do either of you have anything?
I just have a quick question, actually. Howard and Joshua, thanks so much for the pitch. I want to make sure I understand the timeline that you guys laid out to launch of the product. I believe you mentioned that you were a conversation about a few pilots, but we'd love to understand the timeline from today to when you expect the solution to be available to customers.
Yeah, for the M1, we're planning to finish development in the summer during September and deliver our first proof of concept and prototypes to our customers. And for M2, we're planning to start development in the summer and finish that in around 6 months, which will be around end of this year.
Great. Well, thank you again to the Mach 9 team. One quick reminder to our audience, please remember to rate each company at the bottom of the screen for your chance to win a free Passport membership and to help us decide the Audience Choice Award. You can click on each company name and you can rate all 7 companies presenting. And then at the end of the event, scores will be tallied to determine a winner. Thank you again, Mach 9, and thank you to our judges. Up next, we have Jesse, CEO of Gridfruit. Please join me in welcoming Jesse to the stage.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for making time today. Let's see, full screen here. I'm Jesse Thornburg with Gridfruit. We put unused data to work with artificial intelligence, controlling stores, refrigeration systems to reduce their energy bills, improve their power outage resilience, and provide the grid with benefits. Think with me about the last time you walked through a supermarket and opened up one of those big freezer doors and watched the cold white air pour out on you. This represents a small loss in thermal energy to the store, and their refrigeration systems respond throughout the day by turning on and off compressors that drive that temperature back down. This is data we collected from our first pilot. You can see in blue the power performance of the compressor, and then 3 to 4 times a day, there's a large spike in power due to the system's defrosting. Unfortunately, the manufacturers typically set these defrosts to occur right in the evening hours when residential homes are also peaking in demand. So grids often see an aggregate load curve something like this, as we found from our first paid pilot customer, Southern California Edison. Basically, they have solar midday, but just as the sun's going down, that demand from commercial and residential customers is going up. And grids across the country pass as much of that cost as they can on to the ratepayers, customers like us. And they have to turn on their most expensive and highest polluting generators that time every evening. Now, many players are addressing this in residential homes, but we saw a huge need in food retail. Basically, their commercial refrigerators are the majority of their energy cost, up to 62% of their electricity usage. And they're already collecting data from these systems, but keeping that siloed, and most of it is left unused. We take that data, it's noisy, bits are missing, so we clean it up and use machine learning to process that with weather data and inputs from the grid, including time of day and seasonal pricing, to optimize control recommendations for the store so they can reduce their energy bills, extend their asset lifetimes, improve outage resilience to protect their food inventory, and also open up a new revenue stream from demand response payments from the grid. And we see this as a first step in a larger platform to become the nest of commercial buildings, partnering with the existing controls manufacturers and adding a software layer on that to balance commercial refrigeration with loads like HVAC and lighting, on-site generation like rooftop solar, and electric vehicle charging. We've also developed and demonstrated a dashboard that provides automated alerts so that the store maintenance personnel get alerts if any variable of interest goes outside the bounds that they've set. And we've heard from over 150 discussions with potential customers that they have trouble accessing the data that they're currently providing, and they want a platform like this. We demonstrated from our pilot that we can save each supermarket an average of $36K per year and provide up to $10K in one-time grid rebates, as well as providing the grid up to 15% in peak reduction and emissions reduction. We are starting out charging this as a SaaS subscription model based on a percentage of savings that we demonstrate for an initial trial period. And the percent of savings model is good because with machine learning, we actually improve our performance the longer we train the algorithm and the more data we have. So the value keeps increasing. And we have the benefit of chain-based customer acquisition. So we build a digital twin, supplement that with data for the first 1 or 2 test stores in a chain, but then each additional store we add on is nominal additional cost, and we don't need boots on the ground for each new store we add. We have a number of competitors. Most companies in energy management are focusing on HVAC and lighting, but these few are focusing on refrigeration. But they don't provide outage resilience by pre-cooling the refrigerators. We're demonstrating that in an SPR project and getting great results. We, as I mentioned, have already demonstrated in the store and utility markets, and we're expanding in the coming years to reach around 50 million in revenue by 2025. And from our bottoms-up estimate, we found that this is a $24 billion annual US market. I'm very thankful for our team. We're the right team to get this done. My own background is mechanical engineering and controls. Studied engineering at MIT and Stanford before starting a solar startup. I actually worked with Ascender in those days, and partnered with faculty member Javad Mohammadi at Carnegie Mellon University and our softwares and controls lead, Carolyn, a recent Carnegie Mellon graduate. We're super thankful for our great mentors and advisors, including Afshan Khan from Innovation Works and Professor Shomokar from Carnegie Mellon. We couldn't be here today without these great partners. So many in Pittsburgh and throughout the US, and I appreciate your time. Welcome your questions.
Thank you so much, Jesse, for that wonderful presentation. Over to the judges. Juan, would you like to kick us off?
Sure. Thank you, Jesse. Very interesting solution. I guess I'm more curious on the go-to-market side. So I think you said that one of your pilot customers was SoCal Edison. I guess I'm curious, is when you start to go to market to sell into end customers, will you do so through energy producers in particular regions, or will you do so direct to grocery store and retail chains?
Yeah, that's a great question. We are starting, I say we're constantly talking with both, but we have found the utilities are more open to it and often have budget set aside for this. So SoCal Edison, for example, had invested in some energy management for cold warehouses, but they wanted a platform to do that with food stores, which they didn't have. So we find that with a lot of utilities where they've gotten demand response from residential buildings and certain industrial partners, but they really want it from food retail partners. And they have the funds to provide demand response payments, provide us funds to build it out. We do see in the long run, we provide more value per store if we're selling directly to the store because we have that outage resilience piece and predictive maintenance benefits. So in the long run, we basically want to build trust with the utilities and then sell in a monthly subscription to the stores.
Thanks, Jesse. Lisa, do you have any questions for Jesse?
Yeah, so my question is, if you are shifting around the times that you're doing the defrost cycles and things like that, is there any effect on food quality? So they had the schedules for a reason, right? So what does changing the schedules do to the food quality?
Right. It doesn't affect the food quality because we are not ever letting the temperature go outside the preferred band. You know, we're not letting refrigerator food freeze, and we're not letting it go above 41 Fahrenheit. We're basically pre-cooling to the lower end of that band, pre-cooling certain units at different times so that they don't have to drive all the compressors at once and don't defrost at once. So it's just basically looks like an offset sine curve almost, or an offset sawtooth function where they just are not coinciding, but they're still maintaining the same temperature band. So the food freshness is never in question.
So what level of instrumentation is required to be able to roll this out to a store? Is that all represented in that, I think, $15,000 cost that you were showing, or is that a separate cost to be able to roll this out?
It's a very small upfront instrumentation cost. Basically, we're adding a layer to their existing digital controllers that often have, typically it's these big platforms, Emerson, Danfoss, Honeywell has a platform, and basically they have digital controllers with a Modbus connection. So we connect a Raspberry Pi microcontroller through Modbus, and then we can send our signals to that and adjust the commands from their existing control system. So we don't have to get involved with any refrigerant lines, superheat, pressure, any of that stuff. We let that run as normal, but we can adjust the set points through a small microcontroller.
Thank you. Jesse, I think we have time for one last very quick question. Arnie or Nadili, do either of you have anything?
Sure. I mean, I've seen there's a lot of smart building product out there, and I like this is clever and could be very useful. So, relative to your competitors in the smart building controls world, what prevents someone from coming in? What is your durable and be honest, unfair competitive advantage that's going to, once you get out there and people see you are making money, just keep the competitors from jumping in and undercutting, putting you into a knife fight on cost, or undercutting you for market share?
Yeah, that's a good point. We have talked to a lot of those companies doing energy management. We hear from many of them that they don't want to touch refrigeration because communicating with those controls platforms I mentioned is difficult. So, Emerson Electric and Danfoss have basically built their control hardware so that it doesn't interface with, say, Google Nest or, a Honeywell controller that's added on later. So there's an aversion from how that infrastructure has been built so far. There's also an aversion to getting into temperature adjustment. So we've also gone through the insurance conversations to make the store owners happy. There's also a data level where the data is guarded by these stores, but we've been able to get data sets, multiple years of data set at 1 second granularity, whereas most people, when they do get data, it's an hour, 1 per hour reading. So we're pushing, yeah, on that front. We're also filing a patent, but it's certainly something we're constantly addressing and fighting against. It's a great point.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse, and thank you to our judges. Up next, it's my pleasure to welcome Dipon, CEO of Voyage, to the virtual stage.
Hi, my name is Dipon, and I'm the CEO and research scientist at Voyage. It's really great to be here. Thank you for your time and attention this afternoon. So yeah, we'll just go ahead and start. So at Voyage, we are building a robotic arm automation solution for SMBs in manufacturing to be provided as a service. So this is general reprogrammable robotic arm automation. So we are a 2-month-old startup in Pittsburgh. We are very early. But we are already part of the ARM Institute, and we have conducted over more than 30 interviews across the industry, multiple site visits already done, where we have talked about the pain points and really what kind of tasks our manufacturers actually need to be automated. Through that, we have actually already have our first SMB paid pilot agreed just within the first 2 months itself. And looking at our mission, at our AI research strategy as well, 4 CMU MS engineers, master's engineers will be joining the team in summer to actually execute that paid pilot. Now, that said, we're also partnering with a robotic arm startup for our hardware needs. So this is going to be industry-ready cobots. So they are also a startup with specialized in hardware. So we are not a hardware company. We are an AI software robotics control systems company in some sense. And right now we are fully bootstrapped. So any cash will go a long way for us to actually make an impact in this space. I finished my PhD just last December. My thesis was on applying neuroscience ideas to deep learning. So this was fundamental research done. And I have about 7+ years in AI, signal processing, and computer vision. Through that time, was fortunate enough to publish about 25 publications in top conferences and journals, 5 fully granted CMU patents, and also worked for the US government agencies such as DoD, DHS, and DOJ for building their state-of-the-art face detection systems, which are at large scale. That was also part of the work done at CMU. So the question is, why this problem and why right now? So it turns out that macroeconomics, catalyzed by AI technology, is resulting in the fastest skill shift that we have in human history. Now, that's a good thing. But the problem is that a lot of these other tasks, which are low valued, are becoming really hard or difficult for humans to actually continue performing. They're dull, they're repetitive, they're mundane, and in many cases, they're actually dangerous. And this puts a lot of pressure on the workforce right there. So in addition to this, there's a worker population that's retiring right now, and new generation is looking elsewhere. So for them, these growth opportunities are not as big enough as they want it to be. So which results in a large gap in workforce. Now, the problem is that manufacturing SMBs in the US are facing the biggest crunch, not logistics, but manufacturing industry as a whole, with all of these 240,000 SMBs, they're right now facing a brunt of this problem. And this is just in the US. So the question stands, why doesn't traditional automation work for SMBs? And the answers are actually fourfold. So it turns out it's very expensive. It's expensive to get equipment, and also add to that the integration costs, which are a CapEx expenditure. So it's a high upfront barrier, financial barrier getting there. Robots can't really handle variation in terms of objects and tasks. It's also difficult to reprogram them for doing new kind of tasks right there. And finally, there's a knowledge barrier, which all together leads to low adoption in SMBs. So why do we actually care about this? Because 98% of US manufacturing are SMBs. 75% of them are less than 20 employees, and 89% of them cannot fill open positions. This is a big market with a huge pain point. So SMBs need affordable, flexible, and versatile robotic arms. And that's exactly what we are building here. We are building robotic arm AI control software, which enables demo-based reprogramming, which means the user does not need to know programming or any robot experience at all. They simply walk up to the task station, they do the task, and our sensors and vision systems look at the task, decode it, and code it up for the robot itself, and the robot executes that as approximately as possible. Now, this is great for a high mix of tasks and objects that's typical in the SMB environment, and there's immediate ROI. We charge less than what they would actually pay for this task to be done manually. And this prototype is something we have 9 months to go for a physical prototype. And right now, where we are at is about we have simulation where the same AI algorithm can do 4 different tasks. And right now, we are focusing on pick and place for our customer. And our key tech differentiator is the fact that we have proprietary next generation AI algorithms using neuroscience ideas focused on product. So my PhD, for example, showed that biological neural connectivity helps perception, and in fact allows for 10 times smaller deep networks with better performance and accuracy. So that's just one idea from neuroscience through my PhD, which help with this kind of work. But then there are many more ideas out there as well. So I was fortunate enough to be mentored by CMU and MIT professors with industrial neuroscience experience. And I'm really, all of them are actually one of the best in applied side of things, like Professor Mario Savides, and Professor Tommaso Poggio was, in fact, the father of computational neuroscience. So we have a great team at Voyage right now, and we are democratizing robotics through AI research. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Stepan. Let's head over to the judges for questions. Nadili, can we kick it off with you?
Sure, yeah. So I just want to make sure that the appeal here is that you can, the pick and place, for example, function that you are focusing on. I've seen this in larger factories. It's already like an ability that certain arms can do. Your edge is that your approach is inexpensive for the smaller businesses that can't otherwise afford that large current existing arm. Is that true?
That is correct. So we are trying to democratize this, which means increase utility and decrease cost. So yes, first is to decrease cost itself. So
how many?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's fine. So how many customer interviews have you conducted for this?
Yeah, so for 30 plus. So we have talked to our logistics as well. We have talked to SMBs. We're conducting multiple site interviews. So we've seen the variety of tasks that are out there. So this cannot be done with just pick and place. So current pick and place is mostly doing reinforcement learning. That's where the deep learning comes in. But you need actual fundamental research in neuroscience to actually have more versatility in the tech, in the control software. That's what my expertise is, and that's what we're trying to build. Not only just pick and place is just one task that we can perform, but you can reprogram them for other tasks as well. And that's the product that we're building for SMBs. So it's cheaper and it's more utility, provides more utility because it's more versatile as well.
Lisa, this area is kind of right up your alley.
Yes.
Do you have any questions?
So you said that you are partnered with an arm manufacturer, but you didn't say anything about partnerships with the sensor manufacturers. And I feel like the sensors are equally, if not more important for this task. So where are your sensors coming from?
Right. Right now, our sensors are cheap, I would say, off-the-shelf sensors which just have depth perception. So we're working with just RGBD cameras, basically. So my PhD has, throughout my PhD, either be it in face recognition or when we actually work for the perception stack for Boston Robotics, we always work with RGB cameras. So that's where the power of deep learning comes in, where it tries to make sensors as cheap as possible, such that our end product is cheap as possible. So right now we're working with RGB cameras, which are off the shelf, which are under like $200.
Thanks, Stepan. Juan or Arnie, either of you have any questions for Stepan? You're on mute, Arnie.
I have one, but I was going to let Juan go first because I think I interrupted Juan. Go ahead. So just from a supply chain perspective, and just full disclosure, you recently gave us a proposal that was similar to this for one of our fellows positions, and I thought was a very good proposal. And I do like this project, and I like what you're doing with it. I like for it's the target the SMEs. I get the cost model. You're trying to make it cheaper and easier. So on a supply chain perspective, and Lisa kind of was going into this, where are you in locking up your supply chain? Do you have purchase commitments from your purchase commitments from your suppliers that allow you to buy the product at price in the long term as you go forwards? And then the other question was, you're going to own this hardware in terms of sustaining for the year. How much experience do you have with your suppliers, and how confident are you, or how will you make sure you can actually sustain it in place so that you don't run into a financial crunch in 3-4 years?
That's a great question. So our suppliers right now, as I mentioned, are not the traditional robotic companies because their systems cost more than $30,000, $45,000 a piece. So we are working with a startup which is trying to get that cost down. So they're here for about 10 years already, and they have a I would say like a rental program. So we are not buying the robots outright; we are renting them. So as our customers' contracts end, our contracts end as well, and we charge a premium on top of that. And the rental and the premium cost together is basically passed on to the customer, which is still cheaper than what they would pay for manual labor to be done. Now that's where the trick is. The trick is to go after tasks which are hard pain points for our customers and which we can solve. So that's how we are starting. We also have basic negotiations will be going on in the fall when they are a supplier actually coming out with a newer arm. And they'll be starting robotics as a service for other startups. So that's where we can actually negotiate our price to be much lower as well, such that we provide more value to our customer and in the end.
Just to follow on questions really is, in terms of if you were to lose one of your suppliers, how big of an impact would it be on the software? So for instance, you lose your sensors, you have to go to a new one. You lose your robot OEMs, you have to go to a different one. And then the last part was on the artificial intelligence. Are you actually, how confident are you that you really will get shared learning from customer to customer as you're looking at that data, so you can achieve that piece?
Great questions. So firstly, our entire system needs to be, doesn't have to be, needs to be hardware agnostic. So we have sensors on our board. Sensors will be part of our system as well, so as the compute. But we need to be agnostic to what the what the actual arm is. And hence we'll be working with two different suppliers, making the same software working for different arms. So that's the first case. So for example, you mentioned it in your fireside chat as well. We don't need to plan for what the robot arm should be doing. Our main, I would say our main strength is in the perception side of things. How to grasp something, what to grasp, what to do next, and so on. So we direct the arms. So we're independent of what the arms actually are in that sense. And second thing is that once we have different customers, each grasp is going to be performing, it's going to be helping the model learn to grasp better. Once that happens, the models are going to be syncing to the cloud itself. And that a master model is going to always get better at actually grasping objects and doing that particular task. So we have continual learning, and that's something that's also worked on during my PhD as well. And that's continual learning is going to be applied to our models as well. So we continuously learn and get better at our metrics for every individual customer as well. I don't know if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Thank you to our judges, and thank you, Dipan, and congratulations on the progress in just 2 short months. Before we move on to our next presenter, we are going to take a brief, just 2-minute intermission. So fill your cup, have a quick stretch, and we'll be back after these brief messages.
US-based manufacturing is due for a renaissance. New technologies empower American potential and ingenuity, creating and building stronger, faster, and more effective businesses. These technologies elevate, not eliminate, the human roles in manufacturing. The key to all of this? Robotics. Collaboration between robots and humans catalyzes new, in-demand careers in manufacturing. When robots take on burdensome and more dangerous tasks, a safer work environment is created. Retraining workers to develop new skills to work alongside the new technologies is key. ARM will drive programs that help Americans gain these skills at every age. From reaching out to displaced workers to working with students, ARM believes in creating opportunities for a more developed, diverse workforce. This workforce will manage, design, and build the future with all the technological advantages that robotics provides. ARM and its members are on a mission to make the U.S. the world's leader in manufacturing. Companies large and small are learning new ways to implement innovative technologies to make their businesses more efficient, cost-effective, and competitive on the world stage. Humans working and learning side by side with advanced robotics. The future is happening now, thanks to innovation led by ARM and its members.
Welcome back, everyone. Thanks for sticking with us through that short break. Let's get back to our last 3 startup presentations. Up next, let's welcome Allison, CEO of Codex Labs.
Hi everyone, my name's Allison Bonk of Codex Labs. Thanks for having me. We founded Codex Labs really to revolutionize the way robotics and machine learning companies develop their products. Our mission is to increase the efficiency of a company's engineers and reduce time to market by providing tools for fast development and software iterations. Our founding team comes from Uber's self-driving program, where we built and used the complex infrastructure needed to quickly iterate on your robot. Our advisors range from early members of 510 Systems, today known as Waymo, and CTOs and CEOs of prominent robotics and computer vision companies. So the typical developer workflow in robotics is really focused around this concept of iteration. To iterate, companies collect or generate a ton of dense data. They store it, and then engineers use that data to test and understand their software changes as they build their product. Robotics companies currently build this data infrastructure in-house, and this is where the problem comes in. Functionally, each of these companies' platforms serve the same purpose, but they're all one-offs, and their implementations are often overly complex, expensive, and have difficulty scaling. And that's why at Codex Labs, we're working on providing tooling for the informed development of robotics and machine learning systems. We manage the complexity of this developer infrastructure and tools so our customers can simply focus on building their product. Our initial toolkit really focuses around the idea of managing data that's collected. We help engineers work efficiently with tools so they can quickly find, organize, and use their data that is collected. And we help organizations keep cloud bills at a minimum with tools to make decisions around log usage and deletion, which reduces their storage costs, and also run workflows in our job orchestration, which helps them reduce their data egress costs. We're launching this toolkit with a paid pilot customer in mid-May, and we have an LOI from a computer vision startup to use this toolkit once we can support multi-tenancy in our system. So our platform really supports customers now, but also as they grow. So after this initial toolkit, we're building a lot of tech that allows our customers to use their data for testing via this code execution framework. This framework unlocks a bunch of different features, including a log verification system and system performance metrics, all centered around helping our users build a robust system quickly. So we enable workflows that help these robotics companies build, but what really does that usage look like? We have a pay-per-use pricing model. So usage is really what drives our revenue, and our total addressable market today is estimated to be about $3.2 billion, but it's growing. To look at this growth potential, I want to talk about Waymo, which is Google's self-driving car project. So Waymo's been at this since 2009, technically 2007 when 510 Systems started, and they've scaled very quickly. We know that more robotics companies, as time goes by, are going to follow suit and reach a similar usage as Waymo. Waymo simulates 100 years of driving per day. With considering how much data a self-driving car produces, we estimate that to be about 460 exabytes of data per year. To put that in perspective, that's about 1/30 of what the amount of data the Internet of Things transmitted in 2019. So we're talking about insane amounts of data here. And this is all in their in-house platform. And those in-house platforms are really our #1 competition. So in-house platforms tend to be very expensive and they have difficulty scaling, which gives us clear opportunities to capture new customers of different sizes. Building these platforms in-house is really a distraction to our customers, but not having one at all can be crippling. At Codex Labs, we're really focused on providing companies, both big and small, all of the tools they need to build these robotic systems. And with our platform, hard tech companies will allow them to develop faster and accelerate the next wave of robotics. If there's any questions at this point, I would love to take them. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Allison. Let's head over to the judges. Juan, would you like to kick us off?
Sure. Thank you, Allison. Very interesting. I don't think we talk enough about the management of the data behind this development that all these incredible companies are undergoing right now. I guess I'm curious two things. One, I'd love to get a better understanding for how big you think this market is, and at the outset at least, who do you expect your target buyer to be? I know that the user will be the developers, but
Yeah.
who will be making the purchasing decision on the customer side?
Yeah, that's a great question. So to look at our market, our target customers are really robotics companies that have about 300 engineers or less. We have that 300 engineer or less marker because once you start seeing a lot more engineers than that, the likelihood of them building their own in-house platform and doing that successfully is pretty high. So there's about 300,000 engineers that would be users of this platform in relevant companies globally. So this is not just a software engineer. This could be your hardware engineers. This could be people that are in testing, and even people that just need access to the data, like product managers. So we estimate engineers will basically spend about $900 per month on our platform, compared to an estimate of about $3,000 per month on in-house platforms. This is including the cost of storage and the cost of using all these workflows. That does vary by usage. So smaller companies will use less, larger companies will likely use a lot more. Who we're selling to, it's really, you're looking at engineering leadership and sometimes business development and product manager leadership. A couple of advantages that we have. Number one, we're scalable, and we know that these platforms often fall over as companies either get more employees, generate more data, or make major code changes. But secondly, we're providing a lot of tools that give you low code access to that data. So for instance, if you're in business development and you want to know where you're operating most successfully, so you can look at where you should be targeting sales, you'll have access to that data without having to go to an engineer and say, okay, can we operate in this manufacturing facility, yes or no? You can kind of just get access to that right away. Does that answer your question? Cool.
Thank you, Allison. Arnie, over to you. Do you have any questions for Allison?
Allison, just on your beta release, I see it on your website. So I don't know if you've had the beta release yet or if it's coming soon, but when do you expect to have your beta release and any insights you're getting from the data there?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we are launching with a pilot customer, which they are going to be our beta tester in mid-May. So we'll get a lot more robust feedback at that point. However, when our team we all worked at Uber ATG, we've built platforms like this before, and now we're building a platform that is generic and not tied to your robotics system. So we're pretty familiarly aware with the scale and a lot of the technical challenges that we have to achieve while we're at it. But it's really that mid-May deadline that we're going to get usage beyond just our internal stuff.
Gotcha.
Thanks, Allison. We have time for one last question. So Lisa, would you like to jump in here?
Yeah, so I guess I didn't fully understand. Is your licensing model or usage model per engineer, per project, per size of the company? Like how is that actually breaking down?
So we're pay per use, so much like you would use AWS or Snowflake. So it's really a amount of data that you're working with and the compute cost to use it. We're really doing it that way because one, our customers are already pretty familiar with that pricing model. So it's one that they've accepted, but it also allows us to get smaller customers early when maybe they don't have as much money and they just have limited usage. But it also allows us to scale without having to worry about, charging someone X amount a month. And then the next week we look on a Sunday and they ran up our bills $200,000, which can happen.
Thank you so much, Allison, and thank you to our judges. Up next, we have Prakash, CEO of EXGware. Please join me in welcoming him to the virtual stage.
My name is Prakash Thakur. I'm representing the company EXUware. We develop AI and wearable solutions to augment productivity and wellness in human-machine interaction space. We come from Pittsburgh, having graduated from Carnegie Mellon University and University of Pittsburgh. My background has been in health tech and neuroscience and brain tech for the last 10 years. My co-founder, Dr. Wang, is a mad engineer with degrees in computer science, electronic, mechanical engineering. He has a PhD in brain-computer interface. We met in school about 4 years ago, and we have been devising various brain-computer interface technology in various hackathons, winning a bunch of awards, being invited by IEEE to conduct workshops in human-machine interaction space. We often get to talk to a lot of industry leaders, end users who are in the human-machine interaction space, and we have found a big pain point there. Every time people interact with smart device, display, and machine, oftentimes their hands are also busy performing complex tasks in manufacturing and other places. And they have to take their hands away to do a small actuation of devices, just turn on and turn off devices. Not only these cause reduction in productivity, also various safety and hazardous issues. Imagine a factory operator, as you can envision here, dealing with a robotic arm or a complex device while his hands are busy and he cannot take his hands away from something. And at the same time, he has to do other tasks, right? Similarly, this is a very common scenario in driving. Every time we take our focus away, it can lead to serious problems. So this market insight shows that every time we take our focus away from the task that we're using where our hands are used, 55% of efficiency is reduced. And it increases the safety and fatigue issue by 80%. So the industry is crying out for a hands-free gesture control interface that can work ubiquitously any noisy or any other environment. And currently this gesture control interface, there are a lot of adopters run around now in automotive manufacturing and aerospace industry, and it is projected to reach $32 billion in the next 5 years. Given our expertise, we know that there are other cool ways to tackle this by utilizing brainwave and facial gesture signal. We know that these technologies are existing, but they're currently confined in lab and clinical settings, and they're invasive and obtrusive and not for everyday use. So given our background, me and my co-founder, we pursued to gadgetize this technology into a convenient wearable. And I'm introducing you our AI-enabled earbud. Based on years for research, where we have published in many journals, we have integrated and compacted miniature biosensors into this earbud that can also be incorporated into any kind of head-worn devices. These biosensors are capturing brainwave signals and facial gestures in real time. Utilizing our proprietary machine learning platform, it then classifies this information and signals into varieties of mental states, eye gesture and facial gesture, and generate actionable command so people can utilize their gestures, facial gestures, to actuate any devices. Imagine a use case scenario in industrial application. You are performing complex tasks again. By just a blink of your eye or moving your eyes left and right, you can actuate a device. Completely contactless approach. Or for a person with a disability, sitting at the comfort of your home, the person can actually use varieties of connected home devices with facial gesture where their hands are incapable of even using a remote control. This is another area that we're currently exploring. Because we are capturing brainwave signal, we can actually get real-time data about operators and workers in high-stress environment, about their focus, fatigue, and other problems. Using our sensor-based approach by making simple eye movement and facial gestures completely hands-free. Another form factor where we have put an extension in an earbud where the user is actually navigating a 3D game using simple eye movement left, right, raising the eyebrow, or just opening the jaw, which acts like a third pair of hands. Since this is such a hot and trending area and it's considered to be the future of wearables, there are a few companies that are working in this space, including you must have heard of Elon Musk's new company called Neutralink. Some of this technology tend to be invasive because it requires to implant a chip underneath the skull. Whereas some other products that are out in the market or just beginning in the market, they require you to wear something like a complicated obtrusive gadget, which is not accepted in the commonplace. By gadgeting this technology into a simple, easily acceptable wearable like earbud, we are not only making it non-invasive and non-obtrusive, this also renders it 10 times faster and 20 times lighter, addressing a serviceable market size of $1.85 billion. We're fortunate to develop amazing industry collaborations in the last 2 years. So we are in conversation with Sony and Samsung to integrate our technology into their next generation wearables. Cable Labs and Comcast Lab have fostered a strategic partnership with us, who are also allowing access to their API so that we can carry out our pilot studies and then expand this into various other wearable, including consumer wearable area. We are humbled by the amount of international recognition that we have received, not just in US and Canada, but also in Asia Pacific, including from esteemed organizations like Audi and NASA. We're thankful to our numerous partners like NSF Corp, Self-Love, and Boomtown Accelerator, who have helped us throughout our journey in the last 3 years. These are some of the words that key opinion leaders and business industry executives that we are in conversation with are talking about our product. And I would like to thank you again by saying that experts lets you interact with your world with just a blink of your eye. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prakash, for that great presentation. Let's head on over to the judges. Nadili, I see you're already unmuted.
Yes,
do you have a question?
I have like a million questions, but I'll try to prioritize them here. One, you mentioned a bunch of opportunities to use this kind of technology, but what is the one you're going to be starting off with?
Yeah, so currently we are rolling out. So our capability right now is to integrate sensors in any kind of wearable, particularly head-on wearable and the AI capability, right? So we wanted to be, initially we started out as a sort of industry agnostic, and we did a lot of customer discovery with some support from NSF iCorps. And we have found a strategic relationship with Comcast and Cable Labs hardware and connectivity division. So where this is potentially going to be as a early beachhead market for accessibility technology, and also smart warehouses and manufacturing operators where they want to interact with varieties of machines around them. So that's our pilot studies. But going forward, we are looking at sort of an industry agnostic approach. We are in conversation with NASA, for example, where they find huge application of this in aerospace area because the hand-eye coordination is messed up there. And this is the only way actually you can tackle some of those problems.
Great. And I have one more question. You know, I like to consider myself a fairly decisive person, but I have my indecision, right? There's moments of indecision. And so what does that mean with interacting with this technology? Am I going to turn a bunch of lights around my house? Am I going to be moving a bunch of things and change my mind?
Yeah, so for consumer electronic purpose, some of the conversation that we are having with companies is, you see people are already using AirPods and Galaxy Buds like Samsung product, right? So what industry is looking for is now how we can make this wearable more intelligent. So with the same wearable, if we build the capability of capturing some of our facial gesture and brainwave signals, suddenly a everyday consumer can use, for example, in your connected home device, right? Let's say you're busy with something, you can turn on and turn off your light or open or close your door without having to touch anything. That's one. And secondly, you can get real-time tracking of your brainwave signals that can potentially give you alert if your like fatigue or stress level is going up. So that's sort of.
I guess I was asking more the margin of error, potential margin of error.
Yeah. So in terms of actuating devices, what we have seen is with eye movement and gross facial gesture, we are getting about 95% accuracy. But if we are dealing with more complicated tasks, very, very complicated maneuverability, like you saw in drone and other thing, it is possible, but we have to incorporate more sensors.
Thanks, Nadelia, and thank you, Prakash. How about we head on over to Arnie? Do you have any questions?
Yeah, Nagil, I actually really liked your design as I was looking at it over the other day on your website. I liked your website a lot. So the question I have is how far are you? You know, as you were just saying to Neil, how far are you from where you're going to have your first product in the market you think will make the biggest push? Because I think you have some very interesting technology here.
Yeah, so thank you for asking that. So we currently, in a MVP stage, so we have about 3 form factors where we have used 30 users to get some data. And right now we are working with Comcast and Cable Labs to deploy our pilot project within the next quarter. And once we validate that, basically it opens up opportunity for them go to other companies where we are already in conversation with. So we are talking something about third quarter of this year to launch in a larger scale.
And that'll be on your first product, or you're going to try and do more than one product at launch?
So I think it will be our first product where it will be actuating a device on and off binary command. That's how we'll start. And for consumer electronic, our focus is on, I know it gets a little confusing, but it's actually the same technology that can do dual functions. The other function that we are looking, which we already have, high level of accuracy, is getting this beta wave, theta wave from the brain and letting people know about their mental state, their focus, their fatigue, their sleep, and other stuff.
Thanks.
I think we have time for one last question. Lisa or Juan, do either of you have a question for Prakash?
I have one. Prakash, thanks so much. I guess I'm curious about the data that you're going to be collecting through all of these interactions. And it sounds like you're also going to be partnering with a number of different companies to go to market. Curious about one who owns that data, and then how you will work to use the data that you are collecting to make sure that your technology continues to get smarter over time.
Yeah, so we currently control all that data and everything. So the kind of collaboration that we're building with the industry, we understand that to bring an emerging technology to the market, we need this sort of strategic corporate partnership. For them, it is completely non-exclusive relationship that we have. Like we have access to their API ecosystem, like Comcast Lab has actually invested on us a little bit. And then we are now exploring sort of a venture capital investment from corporations. But our interest there is simply a non-exclusive access to their API and channels of their marketing and market access. And all the data and everything that comes from that is completely owned by the company.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Prakash, for joining us. And thank you to our judges. One quick reminder for the audience that this is your last chance to vote for our audience winner and your last chance to be entered to win a free Passport membership. And so without further ado, last but certainly not least, please join me in welcoming Stuart, CEO of eStat Actuation.
Hi, everyone. I'm Stuart with eStat Actuation, and we're making robots safer and less expensive. Mobile robots are an $18 billion market, but it could be 10 times bigger if it weren't for two fundamental problems. First, big hardware costs, and second, safety concerns due to high weight and low responsiveness. These problems come down to the actuators, or the components that are responsible for movement. They're simply too heavy, too slow, too inefficient, and way too expensive. These components can account for up to 50% of the total cost of a robot. So what we have is a big problem and a big market. To illustrate this, let's imagine we're a team of robotics engineers designing a helper robot to help grandma around the house with simple tasks. It should be light enough that if it runs into grandma, it's not going to hurt her. And it needs to be pretty affordable to work for this kind of end-use application. But when we start designing, we quickly run into the problem that even to walk around or pick up a bag, you need surprisingly powerful motors and gearboxes, and you need lots of them. Even when you get the really high-end ones, they cost so much and add so much weight that you need a much heavier duty structure to support that extra weight. And then before you know it, you end up with a robot that weighs as much as a football player and costs a small fortune to make. At eStat, we've created a game-changing new component to solve this problem called an Electro-Adhesive Clutch. It works by using static electricity between thin composite electro-adhesive films that are housed inside our device, shown in the video on the left. Because they are composite and operate using static electricity rather than electromagnetic effects, they're able to be 3 times lighter and use 600 times less power than the conventional versions. They're also more responsive and don't make noise during operation, and also generate essentially zero heat. We're targeting emerging robotics verticals, including flexible warehousing and manufacturing, because these customers have this pants on fire problem and are willing to work with new kinds of innovative hardware. The market for these actuator components in these particular industries is $3 billion today, and that's just a small portion of the total $50 billion actuator market. Our main competition is the conventional actuator companies, but they're having a lot of trouble innovating and getting past these established technologies that have existed for hundreds of years. There are other smaller companies that are coming up with more innovative ways to solve this problem. However, none of them use electro-adhesive technology, and we have 4 granted patents to keep them out of this space. We're selling evaluation units and creating designs for companies like these who are looking to dramatically improve the performance of the next generation of their robots. We've already sold to 6 different customers, and we anticipate $100,000 in revenue from customers this year. Our goal is to get 10 more customers to evaluate our hardware, and then from that group, scale up with 3 of those to achieve $1.5 million in orders by the end of next year. Our team and technology spun out from Carnegie Mellon, and we have more than 25 years combined PhD level robotics hardware experience, as well as experience leading 6 previous startups. I spent 5 years developing this technology in Dr. Carmel Majidi's soft machines lab at CMU before co-founding the company with him. And then we went out and hired Kirby Whitty, who is a fellow CMU PhD with experience in robotics hardware. We're closely tied into the CMU entrepreneurship community, and we're members of ARM and the Pittsburgh Robotics Network. We've raised $500,000 to date, 350 of which was non-dilutive funding from the NSF and the Air Force. And our existing investors include Alpha Lab Gear and Innovation Works, and we are just starting a pre-seed round of fundraising. So our asks, how can you, the audience, help us? Well, first off, all of the other ARM members that are watching, we'd love to collaborate with you on proposals for this upcoming cycle. We'd also love to get connected with talented people, both engineers and business development people. And we'd love to receive any fundraising connections based on raising our round now. So thank you for your attention. Just to reiterate, we are making robots safer and less expensive. And looking forward to your questions.
Thank you very much, Stuart. Let's head over to the judges. How about Lisa? Would you like to kick us off?
All the questions. So first is, what's the lifetime of one of these actuators? How long should I expect one to last?
Great question. We're still doing those tests. They take a long time to run. And we've done some preliminary tests. For example, we did an N=1 fatigue study during my PhD, where we ran a clutch to over 3 million cycles. It continued functioning well throughout that fatigue study. That took a couple months, and we had to stop it so I could finish my PhD and graduate. But we do have those tests ongoing, and we've at least showed there's nothing fundamental about the technology such that it's always going to break after just 1,000 or 10,000 cycles or something like that.
And then the next question is, how small can they go? What's the smallest actuator you can design?
Great question. So the one that we showed on the screen is about the same size as a conventional clutch. We've made design improvements that have gotten that number down by a factor of 3, as well as our weight and power consumption by a factor of 3 on top of what I showed there. And we're just testing some great materials that give us a 10x improvement on what we already have. So since this technology is so early on, we're still making big leaps and bounds, and our goal is to be 50 times better than the existing hardware on every metric, including size.
Arnie, it looks like you're also unmuted. Do you have a question for Stuart?
Yeah, Stuart, we'd love to get you to the ARM Institute. And by the way, we have a call coming up. But I like your design, and I just had a couple of questions for you. I know it's early on. One of the questions I had, though, is in terms of susceptibility, as you're if in a robot and the robot's moving around, is it susceptible to stray magnetic fields or electric fields that could potentially cause it to suddenly release?
That's a question that one of our customers actually asked us this morning. We're lining up some tests to directly evaluate that, but we have not encountered that before in any of our testing or use cases. The theoretical predictions would be no, there's no interactions between our technology and magnetic fields.
And then the other question I was going to ask you, in terms of, you showed your target customers, which were impressive. In terms of current customer base, and again, I know you're early, so you may not have a current customer base. What is your current customer base? Do you actually have customers of reference yet?
Yeah, so we've sold hardware to a medical robotics company, military robotics company, exoskeleton. We're just finalizing a contract with a large hardware company to develop hardware specifically for their end use. So we've gotten some good traction in a pretty good variety of those emerging robotics verticals.
Excellent.
And we're looking to scale up with each of those customers.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Arnie. Juan or Nadili, anything on your end?
I can ask if Juan doesn't have, but in terms of your current customers, just to jump off what Arnie said, based on any feedback, what is something that is a really positive attribute that they really like and you'll ensure to continue as you continue to reiterate this product, but there's also what's a lesson learned or something you are definitely going to change?
Sure, yeah. So based on doing customer discovery, we theorized, okay, the weight and the power consumption are really the big two value propositions, and that's been confirmed by our customers so far. Those are their main qualities that they care about, and those are where we're able to beat the competition as is. The most interesting feedback one, I think, that we didn't anticipate based on customer discovery was this size issue, where they want it to be way smaller than the competition as well. So this first prototype that we made is not beating it on size, but our next iterations definitely will.
Juan, do you have any last questions before we wrap up?
I don't. Thanks so much.
Wonderful. And with that, we've heard from each of our founders. Thank you so much to all of our judges, and thank you again, Stuart, for joining us. Now the judges have their work cut out for them. So thank you to all of our founders again for joining us. Best of luck. I know I speak for everyone at OneValley when I say that we are all thoroughly impressed and look forward to seeing what the future holds for you all. We're going to take a few moments to tally the scores, but we'll be right back.
A recent report by the Manufacturing Institute showed that nearly 500,000 exciting, well-paying manufacturing jobs are currently unfilled. This intrigues Sam, who'd love to find a meaningful career that he can be proud of. But this is what Sam pictures when he thinks of manufacturing. While today, it's more like this. That same study found that by 2025, the number of unfilled manufacturing jobs could spike to well over 3 million. With so much opportunity, Laura finds it hard to believe that students aren't flocking to the educational institute where she works. How does she find Sam to tell him about their amazing programs? Other sources predict that industry growth, combined with pending retirements over the next decade, could negatively affect manufacturing output in the United States, unless employers can find enough people with the technical skills to work in their modern, automated factories. This is not good news for Darius, a manufacturer who needs good workers to keep pace with demand. But how does Darius find out about Laura's programs that can upskill his existing workers and help him connect with Sam? Only roboticscareer.org connects people with industry-vetted education programs for a career in robotics. The connections built here will create the U.S. manufacturing workforce needed for today's factories and those of the future.
The scale and the size of the mill is something you just don't appreciate unless you're standing under it. And it's been here for almost 100 years, and it'll be here for another 100 years, because that's the way we build stuff in Pittsburgh. Hazelwood Green is an amazing site, but it was a steel mill and a coke works, so there were environmental issues. They all had to be dealt with and resolved before you could go vertical with development. There was this 1,500-foot long rusting metal structure that kind of was an eyesore, but also an icon. And so we were confronted with the challenge of how do we preserve the icon and turn it into something really positive on site.
MSR Architects out of Minneapolis, St. Paul provided an option that we didn't even think about, putting the buildings within the building, keeping the exoskeleton, and using that as a solar shed.
The thought of putting solar panels across a quarter-mile long building, which is the largest sloped roof solar panel installation in the entire country, in and of itself presented a really tremendous opportunity for the foundation.
It is generating power for the 2 buildings that are already built and will provide power to the 3rd building as well.
All the stormwater from this site runs into a channel all along the length of the building. That water all flows into cisterns for gray water use.
One of our hallmarks is Brownfield Reclamation and Redevelopment. Here in Hazelwood Green, Mill 19, we bring together the environmental remediation, the historic preservation, and the new cutting-edge companies and jobs.
If you stand out here in the afternoon, you'll see the bald eagles swirling above the site. The resilience and rebuilding of Mill 19, integrated with the community, housing the new technology of the future, is really emblematic of Pittsburgh.
A recent report by the Manufacturing Institute showed that nearly 500,000 exciting, well-paying manufacturing jobs are currently unfilled. This intrigues Sam, who'd love to find a meaningful career that he can be proud of. But this is what Sam pictures when he thinks of manufacturing. While today, it's more like this. That same study found that by 2025, the number of unfilled manufacturing jobs could spike to well over 3 million. With so much opportunity, Laura finds it hard to believe that students aren't flocking to the educational institute where she works. How does she find Sam to tell him about their amazing programs? Other sources predict that industry growth, combined with pending retirements over the next decade, could negatively affect manufacturing output in the United States, unless employers can find enough people with the technical skills to work in their modern, automated factories. This is not good news for Darius, a manufacturer who needs good workers to keep pace with demand. But how does Darius find out about Laura's programs that can upskill his existing workers and help him connect with Sam? Only roboticscareer.org connects people with industry-vetted education programs for a career in robotics. The connections built here will create the U.S. manufacturing workforce needed for today's factories and those of the future.
The scale and the size of the mill is something you just don't appreciate unless you're standing under it. And it's been here for almost 100 years, and it'll be here for another 100 years, because that's the way we build stuff in Pittsburgh. Hazelwood Green is an amazing site, but it was a steel mill and a coke works, so there were environmental issues. They all had to be dealt with and resolved before you could go vertical with development. There was this 1,500-foot long rusting metal structure that kind of was an eyesore, but also an icon. And so we were confronted with the challenge of how do we preserve the icon and turn it into something really positive on site.
MSR architects out of Minneapolis, St. Paul provided an option that we didn't even think about, putting the buildings within the building, keeping the exoskeleton and using that as a solar shed.
The thought of putting solar panels across a quarter-mile long building, which is the largest sloped roof solar panel installation in the entire country, in and of itself presented a really tremendous opportunity for the foundation.
It is generating power for the 2 buildings that are already built and will provide power to the 3rd building as well.
All the stormwater from this site runs into a channel all along the length of the building. That water all flows into cisterns for gray water use.
One of our hallmarks is Brownfield Reclamation and Redevelopment. Here in Hazelwood Green, Mill 19, we bring together the environmental remediation, the historic preservation, and the new cutting-edge companies and jobs.
If you stand out here in an afternoon, you'll see the bald eagles swirling above the site. The resilience and rebuilding of Mill 19, integrated with the community, housing the new technology of the future, is really emblematic of Pittsburgh.
Welcome back, everyone. We have our winners. I know you're all waiting with bated breath. So without further ado, the winner of tonight's audience participation prize and annual passport membership goes to Shreya, founder of Self-Best. And because Shreya is located in Pittsburgh, she'll be getting a free annual membership to the Pittsburgh Entrepreneurship Platform. And as a reminder, to the audience, if you do not already have a passport account, use the code Robotics25 for 25% off your premium passport membership today. Awesome. And so without further ado, I'd like to go ahead and announce our winner, our winners for the Audience Choice Award, as well as the grand prize winner. In addition to their cash prizes, both winners will receive a free Pittsburgh Entrepreneurship Platform membership and will be automatically advanced to the semifinals of our upcoming Pittsburgh Startup Challenge, which is a citywide competition that has attracted over 200 signups and that has a cash prize pool of $50,000, which I'll get to more in just a moment. So without further ado, as voted by our awesome audience, the winner of our $500 Audience Choice Award will go to Actuation. So we have Stuart here. Stuart, if you want to jump on and say anything.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Very honored.
Wonderful. We're excited to have you as part of the community, Stuart, and look forward to working with you in the future. And for our grand prize award, our winner this evening is Brownfield Robotics. Unfortunately, Mark was unable to rejoin for the rest of the event. So we will be accepting this award on his behalf. But again, really looking forward to working with him and the rest of the team in the future. And would really just like to say to all of the participating startups, it's been a great event and we've really enjoyed working with you just over the past few weeks and look forward to working with you on many more occasions in the future. And so one last reminder for those of you in the audience, if you do not already have a passport account, go ahead and use the code Robotics25 for 25% off your premium passport membership. If you're based in Pittsburgh, head over to the Pittsburgh Entrepreneurship Platform to take advantage of our launch rate of $99. Starting on June 24th, the prices will go up. And before we end, I would like to share a bit about our upcoming Pittsburgh Startup Challenge. Over the next week, we'll be announcing the semifinal events that will be happening during the month of May and June, leading up to a championship finals event on June 24th at the OneValley Innovation Center in Hazelwood Green. I really encourage you all to sign up for a free account on PEP for updates, or check back in on Passport if you're not based in Pittsburgh. All of the companies will be competing for free Pittsburgh Entrepreneurship Platform memberships, free co-working space memberships at our Innovation Center in Hazelwood Green, and a non-dilutive cash prize pool of $50,000. I can tell you firsthand that we've had some pretty amazing applications come in, and you won't want to miss it. Last, I would like to take a moment to thank Arnie and the rest of the team over at ARM for being our partners of this event. It's been great working with you, and we're really looking forward to being neighbors in Hazelwood Green. And I'd also like to thank Lisa, Juan, and Adili for joining us today as our judges. I'd also like to thank our audience and remind you that you can connect with any of the startups featured today via the Meet the Startups tab at the top of the page. On behalf of myself and OneValley, thank you all so much for joining us, and thank you again to our founders. We can't wait to have you back soon. Take care, everyone.